I want you to start this deep dive with a moment of absolute honesty. Look around your space right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're driving or jogging, I want you to just pull up that mental inventory of your hardest hit zone. You know, the
What
one,
we all do.
perhaps the back of your closet, or maybe that one drawer we all have, the one we slam shut really fast so we don't have to look at its contents. What is the overarching feeling that site gives you?
That feeling, that sort of visceral reaction, is precisely where we need to start. Our sources introduce this phenomenon not as, a simple, messy room, but as a condition of modern life. They describe it as being suffocated and overwhelmed by so much stuff. It's this low-grade, perpetual anxiety state, and it's triggered by our own possessions.
Exactly. We often try to medicalize this feeling, don't we? We say, oh, I have too much anxiety, or I'm so stressed. But maybe, just maybe, the stress is actually a result of the volume of things demanding our attention.
I think it often is.
It's not just a lack of organization. It's a profound, pervasive, modern condition that extends well beyond, the physical eyesore.
It absolutely does. The core mission of this deep dive, and it really is a mission of liberation, is to extract the key psychological and philosophical insights from the materials you provided us.
Okay.
We need to understand how the physical accumulation of items, that material excess, translates instantly into what we are going to define today as a debilitating mental weight.
Mental weight.
We are talking about clutter, and I think we should say it with a capital C.
Yes.
Meaning the explicit psychological burden it carries.
Clutter is no longer just a passive description of a mess. It's an active drain on your cognitive resources. And our goal today is ambitious.
It is.
We want to give you the mental framework needed to reverse this overwhelming feeling, moving from feeling choked by your possessions to achieving intentional, expansive personal freedom.
And we have a very clear sort of three-part journey ahead of us. First, we have to dissect the deep societal problem that forces this accumulation in the first place. The insidious, highly engineered allure of consumerism.
Right. The why.
The why. Second, we have to confront the single greatest psychological obstacle to reversing the flow. The intense, often painful challenge of dealing with objects that hold sentimental value.
And that's the hardest part for so many people.
It is.
And then, crucially, we arrive at the payoff. We will move past the myth of deprivation and explore the arrival at intentional living, defining it not by what you lack, but by the vast resources you gain.
Resources like time, energy, and critically true personal freedom.
So let's unpack this feeling of being overwhelmed and start with the architect of the problem, the persistent trap of modern acquisition. So let's begin with that concept we just introduced. Clutter as mental weight, not just physical mess.
Okay.
If I see a stack of unopened mail or, say, a drawer full of old foreign coins from trips, my immediate instinct is to think, I need to clean that up. But the source material, particularly the analysis provided, instantly reframes this. It argues that the true problem isn't the physical volume, it's the cognitive taxation.
That reframing is the philosophical gateway to minimalism. We absolutely must stop viewing clutter as passive. It is an active psychological burden.
Active. How so?
Think of every single object you own as demanding a non-negotiable fraction of your cognitive resources, even when you aren't looking at it. Consider that dusty box of old cables or the stack of half-finished craft projects in the corner.
And this is where the dynamic exchange happens, isn't it? Because I might argue, well, it's stored away in the attic. It's not draining anything from me.
But it is. The very act of storage is still a decision, and it carries future obligations.
I see.
Precisely. That dusty box, even hidden away, represents an array of unfinished, lingering business. This is the mental overhead we're talking about.
Okay, break that down for me, the cables.
Do I need these cables? Are they still compatible with anything I own, or am I just hoarding them just in case?
The just-in-case trap.
The ultimate trap. Should I properly dispose of them? Where do I store them so they don't get damaged? Each time you even think about that item or just remember its existence, your brain is engaging in a microtask.
A microtask.
A momentary sorting, cleaning, or future-moving action. It's work.
It's the constant, low-level drone of unresolved decision-making.
Yeah.
We tend to focus on the big decisions, like buying a house or taking a new job. But we completely underestimate the cumulative toll of hundreds, maybe thousands, of these tiny micro decisions tied to our possessions.
That's a term for it. It's called decision fatigue.
Decision fatigue.
That's exactly it. The physical eyesore is secondary to the constant reminder of something unsorted or unmanaged. Let's get really specific.
Please.
Think about the appliance you bought 3 years ago. You keep the manual, the warranty card, and the registration information in a folder.
Of course.
That small folder is clutter, not because of its size, but because it represents future maintenance, potential claims, and the mental note that you must not lose it. The burden is the constant awareness of the obligation.
It's like having hundreds of open tabs in your brain's browser.
Perfect analogy. It is truly the death by 1,000 cuts principle applied to ownership. You just don't realize how much mental energy is being siphoned off by the hundreds of objects you are perpetually obligated to maintain, clean, insure, or simply worry about.
And the sources bring us immediately to how those objects sneak into our lives in the first place.
Yes.
The stark contrast between the short-lived dopamine hit and the crushing long-term burden.
This analysis is so critical because it explains the addictive nature of consumption. One of the speakers in the source dialogue, Emma, describes getting that undeniable dopamine hit when I click buy.
Yeah, it is undeniable.
It's not hyperbole. It is a neurological fact. The brain responds to anticipation, to the perceived promise of improved life, status, or comfort that the purchase represents.
It's the instant gratification feedback loop, perfected and engineered by modern commerce. The anticipation of newness, the rush of acquisition, the feeling of having successfully tracked down and obtained the desired object.
It all releases dopamine, creating a powerful, almost Pavlovian response linked to that buy now button.
But the sources are ruthless in contrasting this immediate, fleeting reward with what comes next, the subsequent reality.
And that feeling just vanishes, doesn't it? Almost as quickly as the package is ripped open. A week later, the sources note, the object is no longer exciting, it's just another thing to clean.
And this is where the cognitive dissonance kicks in.
Yeah.
You pursue this item, thinking it would bring you happiness or, some utility, but instead it swiftly transforms into maintenance, responsibility, and increased friction in your daily life.
Yes.
The excitement has entirely evaporated, leaving only the managerial demands, the residue of the object.
It creates this awful self-defeating spiral. You buy some things to elevate your mood or fill a perceived void. That good feeling fades.
All right.
The object becomes a source of stress clutter, and your reaction to that stress is often to seek another temporary fix, which inevitably means buying more stuff. It's an efficient, continuous trek.
The treadmill.
And we should also consider the economics of planned obsolescence here. Companies design products with a limited lifespan, ensuring that the initial hit is followed by quick failure, forcing a repeat purchase and adding dead, useless material, the old model, to your storage space.
So the system is designed not just to sell you a product.
It's designed to ensure that product soon becomes clutter.
So if that is the mechanism of the trap, we have to look at the architect behind it, the societal programming itself. The counterargument in the dialogue points directly at the core philosophical issue. Society tells us that happiness can be bought.
This is the critical sociological analysis. The narrative of modern consumerism is pervasive. It isn't merely about selling items, it's selling an entire worldview.
A worldview.
A worldview that stipulates that personal value, success, security, and emotional satisfaction are inherently tied to material acquisition and the display of those acquisitions.
It's the persistent mantra delivered through advertising, social media, and just culture. If you just achieve the right aesthetic, the newest gadget, the bigger house, then you will finally be complete, successful, or perhaps most dangerously safe.
And this narrative creates an endless treadmill. Since consumer culture is built on continuous novelty, we are always chasing a moving target defined by external standards rather than addressing our internal needs.
Right. If you aren't acquiring, you often feel like you are failing or falling behind your peers.
And our identity becomes inextricably linked to our possessions, the car we drive, the brand we wear, the items we curate and display online.
So if that is the pervasive trap, what is the revolutionary counter-argument that minimalism introduces?
Right.
The sources offer a clear position shift that breaks this clutter.
Well, the minimalist approach is radical because it demands autonomy over your own definition of success. It completely flips the equation. Minimalism argues the opposite. That true, sustainable happiness is found not in accumulating, but in removing the excess. It posits that the true ingredients for a meaningful life, creativity, connection, health, are often buried and inaccessible beneath the sheer weight of our material obligations.
And that sets the stage for the transition to the solution, doesn't it? It defines minimalism not as deprivation, but as a deliberate and powerful state of being.
Yes. We transition seamlessly from dissecting the problem to introducing the concept of intentional living.
Intentional living.
It's the antidote to the consumer autopilot. If the problem is accumulating unconsciously based on external demands, intentional living is about making conscious, deliberate decisions about every single thing you allow into your life, every possession, every commitment, every time sink.
It's active gatekeeping.
That's a great way to put it.
But what does that gatekeeping look like in practice? The sources imply a pretty high level of discernment. For you, the listener, this means establishing a clear set of self-defined priorities first. What truly serves your core values, your time, and your energy.
We can suggest a framework for this, based on that principle of intentionality. For example, before any purchase or even a retention decision, you apply a rigorous filter.
Like a checklist.
Exactly. Does this item have immediate necessary utility? Does it bring profound, unique joy or beauty? And crucially, what is the total cost of ownership?
Not just the price tag.
No, not at all. The time required to store it, clean it, maintain it, and worry about it over the next year. Intentional living means choosing to honor only those things that pass the gate and rejecting all others.
It is a powerful act of boundary setting against the entire weight of societal pressure.
It is.
It recognizes that our possessions are not passive objects. They are active, taxing claims on our most valuable resources, our attention and our freedom.
And intentional living means consciously deciding which claims you honor and which you reject, thereby forming the philosophical bedrock of freedom from clutter.
It's self-determination applied to your belongings.
You are the sovereign ruler of your space and your time, and every item must justify its existence to you, the monarch.
So we understand the goal, intentional living. We grasp the enemy, unconscious consumerism, and the mental weight of clutter. But anyone who has attempted to start this process knows that moving from philosophical intent to physical action it's incredibly difficult. It's fraught with emotional friction.
That difficulty is characterized by what we call the emotional friction of decluttering. The sources validate this experience immediately. The speaker, Emma, states that getting started is so hard.
It is.
And the specific obstacle she identifies is the inability to discard items like old gifts, childhood drawings, or inherited items because of their perceived sentimental value.
This is where logic completely fails, isn't it? You can look at a tipped porcelain figurine or a pile of grade school report cards and rationally know they serve no practical purpose. And yet, the moment you consider putting them into a donation box, a wave of guilt or sorrow or profound loss just hits you.
The emotional attachment bypasses all rationale. And that emotional intensity stems from the deep human mechanism of attachment. We are, hardwired to conflate the material object, the paper, the substance, with the people or the emotional events associated with the memory.
So the old gift isn't merely a physical item.
It becomes a powerful, sacred proxy for the person who gave it, or the relationship being honored, or the experience being preserved.
This brings us directly into the psychological reasons why sentimental value acts as such an immovable barrier. It's this deep cognitive process where we actively attach memories to objects.
Psychologists sometimes refer to this as external memory storage. We use these items as physical anchors or triggers. We effectively offload the responsibility of retention from our own minds onto the object.
That's fascinating.
And the fear is palpable. If I remove the anchor, will I drift away from that memory? Will the person who gave me this object think I didn't care?
And this attachment leads directly to the core paralyzing fear. The belief that destroying or removing the physical object somehow diminishes or even erases the memory itself.
Yes. We act as if the paper, the fabric, the metal is the container holding the memory intact.
It's a fascinating, yet, as you say, unnecessary psychological dependency. We feel that the memory itself is fragile, easily forgotten, but the material object is robust and permanent.
Therefore, we rely on the robust object to secure the fragile memory. This behavior is a form of protective hoarding, driven by an understandable human desire to preserve our past, our connections, and our sense of continuity.
But the downside is so clear. The item itself becomes imbued with an almost sacred quality, regardless of its lack of utility.
Exactly.
It turns into a little idol on your shelf or in your attic, something you feel obligated to worship and maintain, even though it demands space and energy and provides zero practical value.
And to throw away a gift feels like a betrayal of the giver. To throw away an inherited item feels like a failure to honor the ancestor. The feeling is immense.
Can you give an example?
Sure, consider inheriting a set of heavy formal dining ware that you will never ever use. You don't keep it because you need plates. You keep it because discarding it feels like saying grandma's legacy isn't important to me.
Right. The guilt is overwhelming.
Immense.
So how do we break this paralysis? The brilliance of the minimalist approach, as articulated in the source dialogue, is introducing a key insight designed specifically to sever this emotional tie. The expert David offers this profoundly liberating reframing.
And it is so liberating, he says. The memory is in your head, not in the object.
Wow. Let's just sit with that for a second. The memory is in your head, not in the object.
That simple statement is the intellectual lever required for physical action. It compels you, the individual, to stop relying on external cues for internal processing. It demands that you trust your own mind.
So it shifts the burden of preservation from material ownership.
Back to cognitive processing.
We need to spend time on the liberating nature of this concept. It emphasizes that the physical item is fundamentally non-essential for the retention of the emotional experience or the relationship being honored.
If the memory is strong and important, the physical item is redundant. It is simply a reminder, not the memory itself.
It's a prompt.
It's just a prompt. Think about the act of looking at a photograph. The photograph is a prompt, but the actual memory, the sounds, the emotions, the atmosphere of that moment, that's an act of recall happening inside your brain. Once you accept that the memory is fully integrated into your consciousness, the object is free to be judged on its own merits.
And its merits are.
Does this piece of paper or wood or cloth deserve my valuable physical space and my mental energy? That's the only question.
And the beauty of this separation is that you realize that if the memory is weak, holding on to the item won't strengthen it anyway.
Exactly.
The object in that case becomes a marker of a memory that is already fading, forcing you to maintain a physical burden for a ghost of a feeling.
This realization is the crucial step in the decluttering process. It forces a mental separation before any physical action takes place. You are decluttering your mind's dependence on the object first.
So the shift is from preservation via material retention
to preservation via mental processing and integration. You keep the lesson, the connection, the experience, but you free yourself from the responsibility of maintaining the physical relic.
Now, before we move to the result, we have to address the major psychological defense mechanism that critics of minimalism often raise, the misconception that this means living like a hermit.
Yes, we have to.
We have to clarify what minimalism is not, according to the source material, because this often blocks people from even trying.
We absolutely must temper the perceived extremism. If you go online and search for minimalism, you often see these stark empty rooms, white walls, and maybe one potted plant.
And that's scary for a lot of people.
It is, and the sources confirm this misconception. Minimalism is not about living in an empty white box or having nothing. This is a straw man that dismisses the highly practical and personal nature of the philosophy.
I think we have to use examples here because the listener needs to know they don't have to throw away their entire life. What if I am a professional baker? Does minimalism mean I could only own one spatula and one baking sheet? I mean, that's just impractical.
Not at all. The source's definition rejects that aesthetic extremism and focuses instead on intentionality. Minimalism, in this context, is a practice of maximizing the things that bring value, beauty, or utility, and ruthlessly eliminating everything else.
So for the baker,
that means owning the highest quality mixer, 50 essential tools, and a variety of specialized pans, because those items actively support their purpose and passion. They are essential.
So the minimalist baker might own a massive amount of the kitchen gear, but 0 souvenir mugs, 0 unused clothes, and 0 dusty boxes of cables.
Exactly.
They have defined their specific standard of sufficiency based on their passions.
Precisely. Minimalism is not a mandate for emptiness, but a practice of making conscious space for what truly matters. It is a highly personalized standard of necessity.
Right.
What is essential for a practicing musician, guitars, recording equipment is vastly different from what is essential for a traveling writer, a perfect laptop, essential clothing. But both are minimalists if they adhere to the principle of intentionality, making sure that every item in their life earns its keep.
The moment you realize it's about defining your essential life, rather than living up to some magazine's aesthetic, the whole concept becomes immediately approachable and inspiring. Okay, so if part 2 was about the hard, internal psychological work required to let go of those sentimental anchors, part 3 is the profound and glorious unveiling of the result.
The payoff.
The payoff. We connect the arduous process of decluttering to the supremely positive, tangible outcome.
The process of decluttering is highly directional and purposeful. It's not just about making a neat pile for donation. By removing the non-essential, the core goal is achieved, creating vast reserves of space for prioritized life components.
And as we've stressed, this space is not just physical square footage, is it?
Not at all. It is mental bandwidth, emotional capacity, and temporal availability.
And the source specifies exactly what this liberated space should be used for: your hobbies, your friends, and your peace of mind.
Look closely at that list. Hobbies require committed, distraction-free time and mental bandwidth for deep focus.
Yeah.
Friends require attention, energy, and the ability to host comfortably and spontaneously. Peace of mind requires freedom from anxiety, obligation, and visual stress. Notice that none of these things can be bought. They must be actively cultivated and protected.
And clutter acts as a fundamental barrier to all three. You can't start a new hobby if you can't even find the materials you already own, or if the only space available to work is already piled high with junk.
And you struggle to sustain deep friendships if your living space is a constant source of embarrassment or stress, making you hesitant to invite people in.
Right. You don't want anyone to see the mess.
And peace of mind is fundamentally incompatible with the constant low-level feeling of being overwhelmed by your own surroundings. We can link this back to what we said earlier about decision fatigue.
Okay.
Every cluttered surface is a visual cue of an unfinished task, and those cues erode your ability to rest, to think clearly, or to concentrate.
So the result is this monumental shift from managing burdensome possessions to maximizing beneficial experiences. And this shift is beautifully summarized by that philosophical statement: less is more.
Let's analyze that maxim because it applies far beyond aesthetics. When we say less is more, we are talking about a quantitative reduction in material goods leading to a qualitative increase in time, energy, and, most importantly, mental bandwidth.
This is the crux of the practical advantage of minimalism.
It is.
Let's break down that equation using specific examples. Every item you own carries associated obligations. You must clean it, organize it, maintain it, repair it, store it, or insure it. So if you declutter your wardrobe from, say, 100 items down to 30 highly versatile essential items, you dramatically reduce the time spent laundry sorting, decision-making in the morning, and seasonal storage.
And that reduction in material obligation directly increases your personal liberty and your mental clarity.
It's an exponential reduction in drag on your life.
That's a great way to put it, drag. If you don't own it, it doesn't demand your time, which means your time is now yours to direct intentionally.
Imagine the reduction in errands.
Yes. Fewer trips to the hardware store for forgotten parts because your tool drawer is now organized and transparent. Fewer hours spent tidying a garage full of things you don't use.
And these small increments of time, added up over a week, easily free up an entire evening for your hobbies or your friends.
And that liberty allows for the ultimate shift articulated in the source material, the move from chasing possessions to chasing experiences. This is the definition of true freedom within this philosophy.
And I love that phrase.
When you stop obsessing over the next acquisition, the next phone, the next piece of decor, the next status symbol, you free up massive resources, both financial and mental, to invest in activities that build genuine meaning and memory.
The quote is so powerful. When you stop chasing possessions, you start chasing experiences.
And that is a fundamental shift in how you live your life.
Let's discuss the qualitative difference between those two pursuits. Material acquisition inherently depreciates and clutters. The thrill is temporary, and the maintenance is permanent.
It is.
Contrast that with experiential investment, a trip to learn a new skill, a class, spending focused time volunteering, or investing in deep, meaningful conversations with loved ones.
Experiential investment builds internal memory, skills, connection, and identity. It is additive to the self without adding physical mass to the home.
The memory of climbing a mountain or mastering a new language never requires dusting.
Never. And the financial savings, which might have gone to a new gadget that would depreciate by 50% in a year, instead funded a meaningful trip that will enhance your life story forever.
This is why the source concludes that chasing experiences is true freedom. It's a liberty rooted in internal wealth and internal growth, not in external accumulation.
It's the freedom to move, to decide, and to change direction in life without being anchored by excessive physical baggage or financial debt incurred for material items or the mental stress of ownership.
If you are not defined by what you own, you are free to define yourself entirely by what you do and who you are striving to become.
It's a complete reframing of value. The materialist sees the large storage unit as freedom, the freedom to buy more. The intentional liver sees the empty space, the mobility, the lack of debt, and the abundance of time as true freedom, the freedom to live without external obligation.
And this brings us full circle to the final synthesis, the practice of intentionality revisited, but this time seen through the lens of a sustained, successful lifestyle.
The result? More peace of mind, more time for hobbies, deeper friendships, is a powerful positive feedback loop. It reinforces the initial choice to live deliberately.
So it gets easier over time.
Much easier. The successful intentional liver finds themselves far less susceptible to the consumer traps that caught them initially, because they have tangible, empirical evidence of the superior quality of life derived from focus and scarcity.
The clutter simply doesn't sneak back in easily.
Because the individual's mental gatekeeping mechanisms are now stronger. They have witnessed firsthand the value exchange, the fleeting dopamine hit of acquisition versus the sustained reward of freedom. They've built a rewarding habit of living by design, not by default.
And this creates a perpetual cycle of clarity.
It does. The more you eliminate the non-essential, the clearer your true priorities become. And the better you are at making future intentional decisions that protect that hard-won space and freedom. You are no longer reacting to advertisements. You are proactively cultivating your ideal life.
Hashtag tag outro.
This has been a profound exploration, moving far beyond simple housekeeping into some really serious questions about how we choose to define happiness and freedom in a highly materialistic world.
It's a huge topic. It is. We started with that heavy feeling of suffocation and the paralyzing weight of clutter.
We dissected the highly engineered trap of modern consumerism, that pursuit of the dopamine hit that tells us happiness is a purchasable commodity.
And we exposed the deep psychological barrier posed by sentimental value and the fear of erasing our past.
But we found the key insight for liberation in separating the memory from the material.
Realizing that the story of your life is fully contained in your mind, safe from the donation box.
And finally, we affirmed the ultimate rich goal, that through the discipline of intentional living, we achieve true freedom. The conscious creation of space for our relationships, our passions, and our peace of mind.
This is the shift from chasing possessions to chasing the transformative power of experiences.
That's the whole journey.
And now, as we close, we want to leave you with one final reflective thought to carry forward, building on the concepts of freedom and experiential investment we've discussed today.
Think about the biggest difference between a possession and an experience. The possession demands maintenance from you, but the experience is the reward. It gives back to you.
That's a great distinction.
So if you accept that the memory truly resides in your mind and not the object, what single non-essential possession are you currently holding on to that is blocking your access to true freedom?
And more importantly,
what specific non-material experience, a skill you want to master, a connection you want to deepen, a trip you want to take, are you ready to fund and chase today now that you know you have the mental and physical space to receive it?
the power to redefine your relationship with your belongings is entirely in your hands. Do they serve you, or do they serve as demands on your energy? Choose freedom. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us.